You wake before dawn in the Palatine Hill. Not because you chose to, because you never really sleep, not deeply, not anymore. A slave stands in the doorway of your chamber, waiting for your eyes to open before he dares speak. You are the Emperor of Rome. 60 million people answer to you. And still, at 4 in the morning, your first thought is the same one it was yesterday. Who is planning to kill me today? That is the part nobody imagines. They picture the throne, the gold, the armies bending at your word. What they don't picture is the fear that never leaves your body, not even for a moment, not even in sleep. What does everyone think this life looks like? Endless banquets, absolute power. A word from your mouth and cities rise or fall. History remembers the marble, the conquest, the coins stamped with your face. It remembers Augustus reshaping a republic into an empire. It remembers Nero's excess, Caligula's madness, Marcus Aurelius writing philosophy by candlelight between wars. Rome, in the popular imagination, is a fantasy of total control. The reality is stranger and far more fragile. Your day begins with the salutatio. Before sunrise, hundreds of men gather in the atrium of your palace, waiting for an audience. Senators, clients, petitioners, each one wants something. Each one is measuring your mood, your health, your temper, because a single sentence from you can end a career or end a life. You greet them one by one, and you must remember names, families, debts owed and debts collected. Rome runs on obligation, and you sit at the top of a pyramid built entirely from favors. By mid-morning, you're in council. Not alone, never alone. A Roman emperor rules through a web of advisors, freedmen, military commanders, and family members, and every single one of them has their own ambition folded quietly inside their loyalty. You listen to reports from provinces you will never visit. Britannia, Judea, Egypt. Decisions about grain shipments, tax collection, border skirmishes with tribes whose names you can barely pronounce. One bad harvest in Egypt and Rome itself could starve, because the city imports most of its grain by sea. You are not just a ruler. You are a logistics system with a crown. Here is a number that might surprise you. At its height, Rome's population reached roughly 1 million people, packed into a city with no real sewage system for most residential buildings, no refrigeration, and streets so narrow that wheeled traffic was banned during daylight hours. You, the most powerful man alive, still breathe the same smoke and waste-heavy air as the poorest beggar outside the forum. Power does not buy you clean lungs. What about the money? The imperial treasury, the aerarium, and your personal fortune, the fiscus, are deeply entangled, and the sums involved are almost impossible to picture. Augustus reportedly left behind a fortune equivalent to billions in modern terms, built from conquered territory, inherited estates, and control over Egypt's grain wealth. But wealth on this scale isn't spending money. It's infrastructure, aqueducts, legions, games in the Colosseum that could cost more than some kingdom's entire annual income, just to keep the population entertained enough not to riot. Because that's the real currency you're managing, isn't it? Not gold. Loyalty. Bread and circuses exist for a reason. An idle, hungry population in a city of 1 million people is the single greatest threat to your reign, more dangerous than any foreign army. So you fund games. You fund grain doles. You fund spectacle. Because a distracted citizen is a citizen who isn't outside your palace with a torch. And still, none of it protects you from the people closest to you. Consider this. Of Rome's emperors, a significant number did not die of natural causes. Assassination, forced suicide, execution by their own guard. The Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers whose entire purpose is protecting you, have on more than one occasion been the ones who killed an emperor or auctioned the throne to the highest bidder after doing so. Think about that. The men standing 3 feet from you, armed, trained, sworn to your protection, are also the single greatest statistical threat to your life. How do you sleep with that knowledge sitting in your chest every single night? You don't? Not really. You learn to read a room the way a sailor reads weather, a senator who laughs too quickly, a general who's grown too popular with his troops, a wife or a son who stands to gain from your death. Paranoia isn't a flaw in this life. It's a survival skill, sharpened daily, and it never fully switches off. There is also the isolation, and it is total. You cannot have a normal conversation again. Every person who speaks to you is calculating what your response might cost or grant them. Your food is tasted before you eat it. Your wine is watched. Even affection becomes suspect, because the people who love you are also the people positioned to inherit everything you have. Marcus Aurelius, one of the more introspective emperors, wrote privately about the exhaustion of ruling, about needing to remind himself each morning that the people he would meet that day would be ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful. He wasn't being cynical. He was preparing himself, the way a soldier checks his armor before battle. What does this do to a mind over years, over decades? It hardens something. Historians have long debated whether power itself changes a person or whether it simply removes every restraint that used to hide who they already were. Caligula, by most surviving accounts, began his reign with genuine popularity and slid into erratic cruelty within a few short years. Nero, trained by philosophers, ended his life having ordered the deaths of his own mother and, by some accounts, his wife. This is not a coincidence of bad luck across multiple men. It is a pattern. Total power, combined with total isolation, combined with the constant threat of assassination, produces a particular kind of psychological erosion. You stop trusting instinct. You start trusting only control. And yet, some resisted that pull. Some carried it differently. The Stoic emperors treated the throne almost as a burden to be endured with discipline rather than a prize to be enjoyed, because they understood something the crowd outside never could. The purple robe does not protect you. It marks you. It makes you the single most visible target in the entire empire, and every gift Rome gives you, it can just as easily take back, often violently, often from the hands of someone you trusted the most. Even your death was rarely private. An emperor's passing could trigger civil war, as ambitious generals across the provinces raced their legions toward Rome to claim the throne before a rival could. The year of the four emperors, in 69 AD, saw the throne change hands 4 times within 12 months, as one claimant after another was proclaimed, then overthrown, then killed. Your legacy wasn't guaranteed by blood or by law. It was guaranteed by whoever held the most loyal legions when your heart finally stopped. So why did anyone want this life at all? Because for a moment, however brief, however dangerous, you held something almost no human being in history has ever held. The ability to reshape a civilization with a decision made before breakfast. Build a road that still exists 2,000 years later. Found a city. End a war with a signature. Determine which philosophies, which religions, which laws would ripple outward for centuries after you were dust. That kind of reach is intoxicating even when you know, somewhere beneath the fear, that it will likely be the reason you die young, and violently, and possibly at the hands of someone standing beside you right now. Maybe that's the real question this life forces you to answer. Would you trade your peace, your trust, your ordinary human closeness with other people for a taste of that kind of permanence? For the chance that your name might outlast everyone who ever loved or betrayed you? You woke before dawn in the Palatine Hill, and your first thought was the same one it always is. Who is planning to kill me today? Except now you understand something you didn't before. That fear was never the cost of being emperor. It was the price of being remembered. Keep glowing and growing. Peace.